Good day, Riftbounders. Yes, the FAQ is here. Let's just go over a few keywords here, although I did do a quick synopsis of everything, so hopefully we can get this done in a short amount of time, as it was getting pretty bad trying to do the whole thing. So, E means exhaust, M means might, A means 1 power of any domain, C means 1 power of this card's domain, C, an accelerate cost takes on the domain of the unit, or turns it into A if the unit has no domain, multiple domains, which currently doesn't matter, I believe, but the future will be holding to everyone. And C, in other cases, is treated as a corresponding spell symbol in all respects, matching how the cards are actually printed. It's just a design shorthand. So let's get into the fun stuff. So shall we? First one here, Abandon. What happens when you play Abandon to a spell with the flow cost? It will be banished, and then it will attempt to leave the chain. There you go. And then it's also applies to Kaiser Evolutionary from Origins or Fizz Trickster from Spirit Forge. So currently the two that we know of. There's probably a few others, but again, this is how it happens. It does go to banish because they can't get back to hand. This is the one I'm going to have the most trouble with, so please excuse me. What is the difference between the Skaya, and Azir Sovereign using this battlefield? Skaya, delayed triggered, refers to a battlefield that she held. Azir Sovereign, attack trigger, refers to a battlefield where he is located. Skaya has a delayed trigger which looks at where she held, so obviously you have to hold first and then you can do her effect, whereas the Sovereign attack trigger will be checked when the target ability resolves. In this case, I move in, do I stay here, resolve. So yeah, you can get rid of him before he actually has to trigger his Units of Doom. What happens when I play a Moonfall? Choosing an enemy unit while I control an empowered male newly awakened. The chosen unit will be given -3 might, all the others will be given -2 might. Because you only chose the one unit, you have to target, you have to choose to get the additional -might. What about casting Stupify while having a Mel? The chosen unit will be given the -2 might to a minimum of 1. If it has 2 might, it can only go to 1. It doesn't supersede any old text, so it can only go to the minimum granted here, which is 1. Don't forget to draw a card. Speaking of Mel, my opponent plays Abandon on my spell while I control an empowered Mel newly awakened. What happens? They play the Abandon targeting a spell. On resolution, they will predict, nothing else will happen. This I am pondering with specifically just for Abandon, just because it has predict, so obviously it's got more stuff to resolve when it finishes. I just think that deflect just wouldn't work. So overall, yes, cards. Kind of answers the question, but doesn't answer it fully. How does it work if I cast Abandon while having an empowered Mel newly awakened, but they rebuttal my spell? So Mel versus Mel. Basically, rebuttal doesn't counter, redirect. So you're not stopping the spell, you're just choosing a new way for it to go. So it's cool, it's gravy. What happens if I choose to copy an empowered unit when I equip an unempowered unit with Shady Spectacles? Being empowered is a status and is not a copyable effect. Thus, the equipped unit will remain unempowered. It only copies the base attributes. So whatever its baseness is the same, even if the thing is empowered. So that is nice to know. Akashon. What happens when my opponent's Akashon mischievous steals my equipped Shady Spectacles? What happens if they want to copy an Aphelios? Simply spoken, it will miss the equip timing. So it's already equipped. It will then look at Aphelios and go, oh, just for you now. And you've already, unfortunately, by the time you've got all your new words written on you, you're already too far gone, sir. You've already missed the timing. My Sandshoulders have the Shady Spectacles equipped, and it is a copy of Azir Ascended. What happens if I activate the copied Azir activated ability before detaching the Shady Spectacles, and then attach them to the same Sand Soldier as a copy of the same Azir? Can I use the activated ability again? Yes, you can. Each time you become Azir, you're refreshing the ability. I think this is basically a reference to what Yu-Gi-Oh players would call like soft once per turns, where it's technically the same card, but it's technically not anymore, so yeah. What happens during combat damage assignments if my 4 might unit has both Kai Barrier and Locust Trap played on it this turn, and my opponent has a 4 might defender? You can order replacement effects on your unit. If Kai Barrier is first, your unit will take no damage and you will have 3 damage prevented remaining on your unit. If Lotus Trap is first, your unit will take 1 damage and will have no damage prevented remaining on your unit. So you layer your own things that affect you. So you can go, I'm going to layer the key thing on it first. I'm going to take the 4 damage, and then I'm going to put the Lotus Trap on me by the sounds of it. So it's going to be more useful than not, maybe, over the course of time. When we get more effects like this, maybe we'll see how they vary and if they want to change it the way around. So a negative effect has to already be on the effect before you can take a positive effect. So we shall see. What happens when I discard a patched Porobot with Hwei, Brooding Painter, moves trigger? Hwei only cares about the typing and will see both types when a Porobot is discarded. He likes a Porobot with both tags, if you know what I mean. Unit and gear. If my opponent plays 2 spells in succession, can I counter the first one with Crumbling Sands? Yes, because that's how Riftbound works. Crumbling Sands uses the finalized meaning of play because it checks whether cards have been played and isn't a triggered ability. So getting it on the stack, I believe, is finalizing it, essentially. So as long as they've got to their second card on the same chain, stack, link, we're all Gucci. When can I react to my opponent playing Fallen Feline to a battlefield, and how does the naming a card work? You can react to the play effect of Fallen Feline before it names a spell. So essentially, if you are playing this, or you've got an opponent that plays this, they can play this down. Whoever is the opponent gets a chance to go, hey, no thank you, I'm going to Starcrossed, or whatever it is. And how we do the naming card thing here is we both agree on what it is. So you go, I'm not too sure on the name of it, it's that blue card, I think there's like a zigzag on it, and you get to ready things and move things around, and you go, oh, Ride the Wind. You go, yeah, that's the one. And he's like, you sure that's the one you mean? So you both agree to it, and you go, yes, what I mean. It's like, cool, let's got it. They then can't go, actually, I meant Shooting Star, or whatever later. So, you know, it's a case of, we got to work with what we got to work with. We got to both agree to things, and good faith is always a good argument. If I disempower a Kayle, justified, who has been empowered 3 times, does she lose all of her empowered statuses? No, she will lose 1 of her empowered statuses. Thank God. This is something we could have done with pre-release events, but nonetheless it's here. Thank you now. Kayle has been empowered as many times as you like, but you can only gain the bonuses from the first 3 times. That's for this one here. So overall, Kayle you can just keep empowering forever and a day, but it's only the first 3 that stick that you get to keep on her. So as soon as she's got her 9 might and deflect 3, that's as far as she can go. Ganking is pretty good too. What happens if my opponent plays Flash on Akali Silent that's currently in combat after I play Starcross target her? Starcross will resolve to no effect. Essentially, she's no longer in combat and can no longer be targeted by Starcross, miss-targeting. She goes back into the Shrouds, very cool. I have a Raven student on board, and I haven't played any spells this turn. What happens when I play Rebuttal targeting my opponent's Stupify and I pay the 1 power? On resolution, after everything resolves, how much will Battering Ram cost? Will my opponent's Legion ability be active? First of all, how are you playing a red card in a purple-blue deck? Secondly, Ravenbloom cares about spells that resolve. Both spells under your control resolved, which is the effects going off. So in this case, Rebuttal did what it wanted to do, and Stupify did what it wanted to do. Battering Ram and Legion look for finalization. So when things are actually on the chain and we're in. Stupify was already finalized by your opponent, so their Legion ability is active, and the only spell you finalized was Rebuttal. So overall, this is what you get with the lovely effects. So you only get a 4-cost Battering Ram. So overall, so yeah, you know, you get some. You get some. Shwain. What happens when I conquer with Shwain Visionary? If I've only played a patched Pyro and Stupify this turn, you will score a point. Shwain, like Hwei, only cares about what they are. So in this situation, he doesn't care that one thing is 2 things. He just cares that the things have been mentioned and they are doing the thing. What happens when my opponent plays Switcheroo on their 2 might unit and my empowered Gangplank Naval? Kind of interesting. The opponent's unit gets 6 might and the Gangplank becomes 9 might because you've tried to remove its might values. Although it's a Switcheroo, it's more like a replacement effect than it is a negative effect because the might would go down. It acts as a negative effect in this case. There will be more information about this that will be released in a future update, but currently this is what they're going with. This is what this just says basically. So we shall know in the future what's going on. What happens when my empowered Gangplank Naval is moved by my opponent's Blast Cone play effect, and then the exhausted blast cone to stun the gangplank. Will he be stunned? What happens if I then play a back off choosing my gangplank? Will he get the +3 this turn? Blast cone's triggered ability that stuns units doesn't choose them. So the choosing part is the flinging part, but not the stunning part. GP isn't targeted and isn't able to gain the might. Back off can't replace the old stun with a new stun. Actually, we don't do word replacement here with replacing itself. So it just becomes a free cost draw 1, which isn't the best, but sometimes it's what you need. What happens if I play Stupify on my 1 might empowered gangplank naval? Will he get 3 might this turn? He will not, and that is because gangplank can't get -1 from a Stupify if he's already at 1 might. He has to be able to have his value decreased, which he can't. So in this case, it's a 1 cost draw, which is actually still pretty darn good. What happens when my opponent plays Hidden Blade targeting my Akali, deadly weapon, in reaction to her move trigger? Will it still deal damage to the chosen unit? It will. Akali's battlefield I move to or from doesn't require her to be on the board in order for us to be able to identify it. So essentially, just moving lets you. So in this situation, so okay, I do wish this was a bit more, and it does say the relevant rules are here. So I don't know if it's like a specific one for Hidden Blade, because I know Hidden Blade's had quite a few rules, updates, and changes over the course of Riftbound so far. So it might be more how Hidden Blade works as opposed to Akali's effect, but that is where that is currently. Can I activate an empowered Heimerdinger, this duda? Inventor to ready 2 gears. If my Jace Defender Tomorrow Legend isn't empowered, what happens if Heimerdinger isn't empowered? So you can activate Heimerdinger's ability if it is empowered, regardless of the empowered state of Jace, Defender of Tomorrow. Yeah, so he just gets the effects of whatever your thing says he's going to get, essentially. So Heimerdinger's just, you know, doing his thing. I have all the abilities of all friendly legend units and gears, and it's just here, ready 2 gears. So pay the 1, ready 2 gears. So he's pretty much doing Heimerdinger things. What card does the Astral Heron's triggered ability discount? This one doesn't sound particularly hard to understand, but I don't know where it's coming from. And it's just essentially, it discounts the next card played, added to the chain, and queued for finalization this turn after the ability resolves. Sometimes you'll see it as a case of itself will be the first card played this turn to a battlefield, which means that the next ability is already triggered because he's already at the battlefield being played. Overall, good stuff, good stuff. Overall, he's pretty decent, and we do see things coming up with him now and again. Temporal Breach and Elder Dragon. What happens when I play a Temporal Breach targeting my Elder Dragon in base and pay the power for the Dragon Roost while playing Elder Dragon? Will it be played to base or the Dragon Roost? Because these are kind of replacements for themselves and you get to choose, you can choose where you want to play it to. Overall, if you want to play it to the Dragon Roost, you're more than welcome to. You don't have to. And then what happens when I play a Perched Grimwyvn while I haven't conquered Dragon Roost this turn? Can I play the double power cost to play it to the Dragon Roost? What if I've conquered another battlefield? You cannot. In Riftbound, can't beats can. So if you can't do a thing, you can never do a thing. Can I disempower my Ambassador, Matriarch of War, with Profiteer to empower my Kayle? Do I control my own legend? I've always been on the presumption if it's part of the deck, you own it. So that's my presumption. But just to clarify, you can disempower the Ambassador, Matriarch of War, with Profiteer, and yes, you do control your own legend, just in case you weren't sure. What happens if I play a Dragon form on a unit that has -1 might from Stupify applied to it? Will my viewer Grandulist? Is there a moment where the unit becomes 5 might before the 1 might for Stupify, bring it down to 4? The answer is she will not trigger, so no it doesn't. Although Dragon form sets the base might to 5 to the unit, it does so via layers, so its base might will become 5, but if you already have something that's giving it -5 for the turn, in this case of Stupify, you'll also still receive the minus because it's an additional trigger. What happens when I play Hostile Takeover, getting control of my opponent's ready units, move it to base, and then play Temporal Breach, choosing it? Where will the unit go? The unit will remain in banishment. I'm sorry, it's gone forever. Good luck, everyone. You cannot play units you did not originally own. So in this case, if you stole something from your opponent with Hostile Takeover, you're basically killing it, so you're doing a really good job. Congratulations. My 11-mite Renekton Brute is disempowered by my own Profiteer. What happens when my opponent plays Stupify, choosing him or his ability trigger? What happens if instead I activated his ability? A Resident's ability will not trigger in either scenario. In order to become 10 or more, his might would have to have been previously less than 10. So yes, you can't decrease to 10, you have to increase from 9. Yeah, numbers, maths, we like maths. What happens when I play Akashon Rain, choosing a recruit at Hishio, Shell of the World, once, and Aurelia Fervent in base 5 times? How many times do I have to pay for the deflect? The answer basically is you will not pay the deflect cost because you're already targeting something at that battlefield for the whole spell. And then while your spells or abilities choose a unit at Hishio, the Shell of the World, you ignore deflect while paying for the spell. Ignore in this context means you treat deflect on the specified unit as being inactive, like it's turned off temporary. In the case of Hishio, it doesn't specify any unit whose deflect to ignore, so you can ignore all instances of deflect on units as long as you're originally targeting a unit at this battlefield to then target other units through the same spell effect, I believe. Words. So, Akashon Rain now just apparently destroys Aurelia if you're running this here, so good stuff. Remember, it just deal 2 to a unit. You can be your own unit, so if you really need to, you got already got to get rid of, you can always put a unit here and go, bye team! So yeah, I imagine Aurelia's panicking and sweating in the presence of this. What happens when I play Hextech Ray on an Elder Dragon? Well, Imperial Decree Delay Trigger is active and I have an Immortal Phoenix in the trash. Can I play the Immortal Phoenix from the trash? You can. As Delayed Trigger turns any damage into enough to kill, it doesn't matter how it died, but in this situation, a spell did kill something through the effect of the Imperial Decree's delayed effect, still killing the thing in the first place. So it is a bit more of a circular effect of just going down the drain. But yes. And then is this finally? This is a really long one, and I probably would say come and read the full version of this, just because it's interesting with how certain things trigger, especially things like Hidden Blade. But right now, if I play Ride the Wind targeting my unit at vulnerable layers, attempt to move to base, what happens? They will be readied. They don't move. In short, the linked instructions rules are too expansive currently on what qualifies as an ignored instruction. To clarify this definition, an ignored instruction is one that wasn't performed as part of the execution of the spell or abilities instructions because it mistargeted or something happened in the process where it couldn't fully resolve and could only do some of it, which in this case is that readying the unit. Because the target objective wasn't a legal target on the resolution, I think this might also be because we've seen it happen in pro play a little bit now, where people will still forget and they'll try and bring things back. I think it's just that way people can't go, actually I'm going to take my turn back and I'm going to do something else, because they've had a chance to kind of like look at what's going on. And that could be why this has now been updated in this situation, because before it was a case of if you couldn't activate at all, and I think now they're saying no, you can, so that way you can't take it back. But yeah, that has been the FAQ for Vendetta. I look forward to seeing you guys again for the next one in 3-ish months, and we'll have a good time. So thank you for being here today, and I love you all. Peace out and goodbye.